Welcome to the fourth episode of my podcast. In this conversation, you'll hear me talk to Ryan Fishback. Ryan plays Division I tennis for Virginia Tech, and he's probably one of the smartest Division I athletes in the country. Last year, Ryan reached as high as number 32 in the singles ITA rankings and number 4 in the doubles ITA rankings. Not only that, but he also received back-to-back NCAA Elite 90 awards, which basically means he's really freaking smart. Ryan may be the youngest guest I've had on my podcast, but the conversation we had and the things he says are truly incredible. Take a listen.
Hi, Ryan. How's it going?
Hey, Rishab, I'm doing well, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. I'm glad to have you on the podcast, and
Yeah, I'm
I'm
very
excited for a conversation.
Yeah, I can't wait. Let's get going.
Awesome. So, as usual, hey, can you just start off by telling me your journey as to how you became a Virginia Tech tennis player, where that started and maybe why you chose Virginia Tech?
Yeah, so I'm from Geneva, New York, which is in upstate New York, near Rochester. So pretty small town, about 15,000 people or so. Tennis is not very big there, to be honest. But my dad has been a Division III college coach for about 25 years now at a school in Geneva. And so he taught me tennis from a very young age. And I would practice with his college players. And then just as I got older, I started playing tournaments. But he emphasized that I play many sports growing up. So I played basketball, baseball, all the way through middle school. And then soccer, I played through high school as well. So really, I would say, even though I was playing a lot of tournaments all over the country, I still felt like I was a normal kid, so to speak. I went to public high school, um, you know, and so really it was just the weekends I'd go to tournaments, but then during the week I was back with everyone else, which I think really helped me keep a good perspective on, you know, tennis was one thing I was doing, but that wasn't all that I was doing. And so
Right.
it's very important for me to keep that. And then as for Virginia Tech, um, my dad and the current coach at Virginia Tech, Jim Thompson, have known each other since, you know, probably when dinosaurs roamed the earth. But basically, they both played college tennis at Davidson, and they met each other there, and they've kept in touch. And so when I was getting recruited, he reached out, and I took a visit here to Blacksburg, and just really loved it. Loved the rural feel. I'm from a pretty rural area, so that was really cool. But then also, there's this big university with lots of research going on, and obviously big sports too. And so that just really tied it all together for me. So that led me to come here, and yeah, that's here where we are now, 3 years later.
Awesome. Awesome. So, you are someone who has achieved a lot, not only in tennis, but you have many kind of distinctions and honors academically. Um, so, would you be able to just talk to me about what it takes to be a successful student athlete and also how academics has kind of played a role into tennis? Maybe has it helped you? If you could talk about that.
Yeah. So I mean, it was always something that was very important to me, doing well academically, because let's face it, even though most athletes grow up and still in college have the dream of being able to play their sport at the highest level, um, there comes a point when you can no longer play your sport at the highest level. And so that's always just been something that's been ingrained in me to do my best academically. And so here in college, obviously, um, you have to be pretty disciplined to make yourself a schedule, to make sure that you keep track of deadlines for assignments, to um, make sure that when you have free time, maybe you have a day off from tennis, um, you're not just wasting it, using that time to maybe get ahead academically. We travel a lot in the fall. We go to tournaments and we're gone for sometimes a week at a time. You have to make sure you're communicating with your professors. So it's really a never ending sort of cycle of just staying on top of everything. And certainly maybe you have to make some sacrifices in terms of you can't do the things that maybe non-athletes get to do in their free time, but you know, we get to do some pretty cool things too, and so that makes it all worth it.
Right. Understandable. And yeah, I would say, you know, I think that's something that a lot of high school kids think about, like, hey, what is the academic side going to be like? You've clearly been able to manage it well. So, would you say, that's something that people should be thinking about maybe before picking a college or picking, say, a major? Or would you say that you're able to clearly balance it very well, but is that kind of the standard?
Yeah, so I mean, in terms of what you're going to study or where you're going to go study, I mean, it there's never going to be the absolutely perfect decision that you can make all the time, right? But you can just um, you find a school where you feel really comfortable. If you're an athlete, you find coaching staffs that you like, teammates that you like, and then you think about maybe what are you interested in doing, what are you interested in studying. For me, I aspire to go to medical school someday, and so I was always going to be in a science major. Virginia Tech is definitely a STEM school, so that had what I was looking for in that regard. But then, in terms of whether it's doable, I mean, for anyone who puts effort into it, of course it's doable. But there's a reason why the vast majority of people who go to college are not playing a sport, and that's because it is really hard to juggle both. But if you love your sport enough and you're um, engaged in your academics enough, the time is there.
Right. Yeah. No, that makes sense. And I think that's seen to some extent at a high school level, but I'm sure it's completely different when you're in college, the workload there and just the overall time management and balance of life, I'm sure is much harder. So I would say, if you were to kind of turn to high school athletes like myself who are aspiring to maybe push themselves academically as well, what, you know, what are some things you would have us do before getting into college? Maybe certain habits would you say it's good to build? Any advice on that?
Yeah, so I mean, I think that everyone would say that study habits are the kind of things that you need to be consistent with. Otherwise, they can go pretty quickly. And so, even though high school is generally speaking easier than college, you want to start getting some routines and setting aside an hour a night, 2 hours a night, whatever you think is necessary to look over notes or to do assignments. Maybe finding times in your week when you know that you're always going to be free that time, and that's time to do work, not time to do anything else. Um, those are habits that are important to get into. I also think you know, in college, there's a lot more pressure too. And I think that's something that people don't always understand is that in high school sports, your team loses, you lose, whatever. It's like, okay, you go home and that's it. It's whatever. But then in college, you have the coaches that are depending on you. You have teammates that are depending on you. You're representing a university. You're playing often with. There's a lot more attention drawn to it. I mean, social media and just there's a lot more money in college sports too, and so there's more pressure there. So you're always kind of thinking about your sport in the back of your mind too. So you have to be able to, when you're studying, for instance, you have to be able to shut off almost like the athletic part of your mind. And then when you go to practice or to compete, you have to be able to shut off like the academic part of your mind to not let those things sort of just make you too stressed out, basically.
Right. No, that's definitely a good piece of advice. I would I have to ask you, as someone playing in college, just in sports in general, what is maybe a cool moment or something that you could tell the audience that, hey, this is something that college sports brings to you?
Yeah, it's a good question. So the first thing that comes to mind, I'd say, is my my freshman year. Um, we traveled to play Louisville, which is generally a pretty big rival of ours, and it was in mid-April, which is for those who aren't familiar, about late 2000s now, but it's probably about 15 years ago now. There was a deadly shooting that occurred at Virginia Tech. And so every year on that day, there's like a big run and celebration, not celebration, but commemoration that occurs here at Virginia Tech to honor those people. And we played at Louisville on that day, so we were not able to be here for the annual events. And it came down to the last match. I was on court, and I was able to win in a third set to win for us to beat Louisville, which is always a huge match for us. Um, and that was really cool because not only had we won on a day that is very meaningful to Virginia Tech and the Virginia Tech community. So the amount of support we received after that was really cool. And so just being part of a bigger community, right? I mean, you're playing, obviously, it's not that everyone's necessarily following what's going on with the tennis program, but you feel as if you're representing more than just the 10 people around you. And I thought that was something that really made me feel the weight of that.
Got it. Yeah. So not only, like you mentioned before, the pressure of playing for your school, but sometimes you get rewarded for that, right? Like you get that feeling of, wow, there's so much support. People are kind of celebrating that moment with you. That's awesome. I I think my next question kind of goes into that in terms of good and happy moments. Do you have a defining moment maybe during your high school years or when you're even younger when you realized, okay, I can play tennis at a very high level?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's a little hard for me to answer that because my dad, who was my coach growing up, had always kind of instilled in me to you have a result, good or bad, and then you use that to get better. You use that to learn from that, to find out what to practice on, where to train harder. But then you don't have it be something that then you just kind of rest upon that and say, this is proof that I'm good. It's like you have to. What's the phrase like? Uh, Success is not owned, like rent is due every day. That the people say that like that's true. You don't just want to have one moment and then say, this means that I can now be really good. Certainly, when you have success after periods of a lot of training, or maybe you've had a lot of losses and then you have a period of success, that validates the hard work for you. But um, for me, at least, I try to not get too happy after any one event just because we could be even better, right? That means that validates to us that we should keep aiming higher. And so that's just always what I've tried to do.
Right. That's a good way to look at that. No doubt. No doubt. You as you mentioned earlier, you know, when we were talking about, hey, like, how are you able to manage being an athlete at such a high level and being a student at such a high level? I guess a question that goes with that is, what, if you wouldn't mind me asking, like, what is the social life for you in terms of, are you partying as much as other people? Are you going out as much as other people? And, if not, is that something that you're okay with, or you wish kind of like
That's a great
you
question.
lived the life of a normal or a non-athlete student?
That's a great question. And certainly, there are all types in college, right? There are some student athletes that do enjoy going out more. For me, honestly, that was never really, it's never been an interest really of mine. Even like, yeah, it was just, I wanted to come to college to get better with my tennis, to get better as a student, and to learn as a person. But so yeah, I don't, and I was never really in the habit of going out at all, like, or partying when I was younger either. So it's not as if I feel as like I'm missing anything. Like um, I feel very, you know, satisfied with what I get to do every day. Work hard on the tennis court, work hard in the classroom, and try to do as well as you can with both of those. And that's what I enjoy doing. But certainly, that's not to say that it's bad, to enjoy the social life as well. It just depends on on what makes people happy. And for me, training hard and studying hard, like I said, is good for me.
Got it. Yeah. So I guess so what you're saying is there's both sides to it. You certainly can enjoy social life and be an athlete, but at the same time, that's not always the case. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you're an athlete, you don't, even if you do go out, you don't go out when there's matches coming up, right? You don't go out generally on weekdays because you have full days of training and practice and classes the next day. But if you have a weekend off, certainly some athletes might go out, and that's, honestly, part of that can help relieve the pressure that I was talking about earlier, right? Like, people want to enjoy themselves, people want to have fun. If that's a way that they can do that, and it's a time when they're not, you know, expected to be at their A game, if you understand what I'm saying, sure, I think that's a great way for people to relieve the stress and pressure that they're under, because, like I said, it is a lot of pressure being a student athlete, especially the higher the level gets. But for me, um, yeah, that's just wasn't for me, I guess.
No, I understand that. Yeah. I would say I think again, like you said, it's personal choice, and I understand what you're saying. So I think it's good for people to hear that as well. That hey, even if you do like socializing, you do like that kind of thing, like you said, it's not something that you're probably typically going to be doing on a weekday. It's not something you're going to do when you have matches. So it's something to, I guess, consider if that's what people enjoy, like you said. Yeah. So my last question to you is, do you feel like all the work you've put in and everything you've done up until now was worth it for you to be where you are now, playing Division 1 tennis and being one of the best student athletes in the nation, as well as if you can go back and maybe fix something or advise your younger self to do this more, do this less, what would that be?
Yeah, no, certainly. I mean, I have really enjoyed my time here. I've gotten to go a lot of cool places, meet a lot of new people, study under great professors, uh, play and play against really good players. So that's all been very, very influential, I'd say. I mean, I feel as if I've been able to just constantly, when you're put in an environment where you're constantly being surrounded by people that are challenging you, right? That's where there's most growth. When you have to compete against players that are at or above your level currently, that makes you better. When you're in classes that are hard, have material that you haven't done before, that makes you smarter. So yeah, in that regard, you know, I am very, I don't want to say satisfied, because like I said, we can always get better, but I'm very, happy with where I am right now, and what I continue to try to do. Um, yeah, but of course there are things that you'd always look back and say, there are different things you can do. I think, especially when you're first coming into college, there are a lot of things maybe that you stress about that maybe don't need to be stressed about. Whereas when you're an upperclassman, you're like, man, I spent so many nights worrying about that, and I didn't really need to. Some examples of that are when you come in and you're on a team. Of course you want to make your mark. You want to impress your coaches. You want to do well. You want to play. You want to you know make sure that you're like feel as if you're contributing a lot. And the truth is, you can't control the actual results that you get. You can't control how well you do. All you can control is your daily work, right? When you go and lift, when you go and practice, when you go and study, taking care of all the things you can control. Um, and that's something that I think I've been able to stress about less as I've gotten older, is like, there's only so many things you can do in a day. There's only so many worries you can have, and things that are out of your control, that's not to be worried about. So I think that's a big piece of advice I'd have for aspiring college athletes is, look, you can't control what the college coaches recruiting you think. You can't control what your teammates think. You can't control what your future coaches will think, right? All you can control is your behavior, um, how hard you're working, and the kind of character you have. Other than that, water under the bridge, as they say.
I understand. Yeah. Awesome. I think that's great advice. And, I'm glad to hear the feedback of, how you feel about where you are. It's good. Always great to hear. So, yeah, well, I mean, thank you for the great conversation. Definitely a lot of things to learn from that. And, you know, it's, I'm glad to have you here. That's it.
Yeah, thanks very much. It was a pleasure.
Awesome. All right. Take care. Have a good one.
You as well.
Everyone, thanks for sticking around until the end. I hope you enjoyed the conversation I had with Ryan. Follow me on TikTok and Instagram so you know when I've posted the next episode. Have a good day.